All right, it's podcast time, and I have a new guest for you today, Dia Bondi. She is a communication catalyst, speaker, and author of Ask Like an Auctioneer, How to Ask for More and Get It. She coaches VC-backed founders, executives, and ambitious professionals to speak powerfully when the stakes are high. She helped Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the 2016 Summer Olympics, has helped countless leaders secure hundreds of millions in decisions and resources. A hobbyist fundraising auctioneer, Dia's TEDx talk was selected as a TED editor's pick, showcasing how to make the kinds of asks that can change everything. And I asked you to be on the podcast, so here we are. Hi, Dia.
That was not an easy yes for me, just so you know.
Oh,
just kidding.
I love it.
I'm like super easy yes. Super easy yes.
Yay. Okay, so your work focuses on helping people ask for more and get it.
To be fair, my core work is to help leaders and founders speak powerfully. And my side quest was my book. I think of it as my side quest.
Okay. Why the side quest?
It was just, who thought I would pick up a hobby like auctioneering in the middle of my career? It's kind of crazy. Now, my communications work and Ask Like an Auctioneer ideas, they do crash together because most of the executives and founders I work with, securing decisions and resources, fundraising, looking to engage their audiences or talent base. They're pitching products. They're doing founder and leader-led sales. They're running teams, et cetera. And they have to, half the stories they tell in the world are to secure a decision. So I guess, yes, I am in the business of asking for more and getting it in that world.
Everything revolves around the ask, right?
It really does. Even if it doesn't sound like one, it's setting one up, even if it's for the next time we talk.
Exactly. Planting that little seed to harvest later. So you work with influential leaders and entrepreneurs. When did you notice that you had a gift for helping others communicate their value with confidence?
Gifts can be earned.
Yes, they can.
Like in your mountaineering adventures, like it's not like you're gifted and summiting is a thing you're born with. It's like it's work. This is just a little bit of a side note, but I remember I was doing a lot of obstacle course racing a while ago, and I was like, my life was really embedded in fitness, and I live at the top of a very steep hill in the Bay Area. The kind of hill that when you're riding a bike up it, it's going straight up is difficult. You've got to tack a little bit, And I was riding home one day from the office, end of the day, and I'm like, oh, I got to get to the top of this hill. And I'm efforting so hard. And there's a woman in her driveway who shouted to me, I wish I could do that. And I thought, this doesn't happen because you wish.
Yeah. Just to let you know, I have to choose every single one of these pedal strokes.
100%. My daughter is a competitive athlete. Same thing. She gets a lot of feedback. Oh, she's just born with it. She's like, no, I work. You know how many balls I hit every day in the garage?
Yeah.
So when you ask, when did I know that I was gifted for it? I mean, for one, I was very drawn to it. When I first saw who would later become my mentor do the work that I do now in communications, I was very compelled. And that was the first sign that I could cultivate a gift. It's one thing to have a talent. It's another thing to cultivate that talent into something that is skillful and high impact. So that was 2000. I remember sitting in the back of the room. Yeah. I remember sitting in the back of the room watching him work because I had learned about his world. And at the end of those 2 days, I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this. And I think, over time, there were lots of little moments that made me go, no, this is good. You're getting better at this. You're unlocking things for people. Yeah. So I want to kind of dispel the myth that there's like these sort of huge aha moments. There are, but it's more like a bunch of them that accumulate on each other. I don't know how that lands for you.
I agree. I think it's like these little nudges that all of a sudden looking back, you can connect the dots and it makes sense, but it wasn't like this one aha. Here's what I'm doing.
100%. And I had to balance, as I built out my career, I had to balance the being future focused and seeing a picture for myself, but at the same time, really listening to what was and seeing what was actually unfolding in front of me. I don't know.
Have you ever had to make a bold ask for yourself?
Oh, totally. I mean, in my TED Talk,
those stories.
Yeah. In my TED Talk, I tell 2 stories actually. So the story I was just telling about sitting in the back of this training room, watching a communications, I'm going to call it training, because in those days we called it training and development. Now we call it professional development, but it was in the training room. And at the end of those 2 days, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. And that guy, I didn't know him very well. I was introduced through a common person in our network. He said, hey, you think what I do is interesting? Come see it for yourself and we'll talk later. So we said goodbye at the end of that day. And I had no idea when the we'll talk later was, but I went home that night and my teeth were on fire. I was like, if I don't do this work, I might die. I wanted it so bad. And that feeling doesn't happen very often in our lives. This is long before I had the ideas of Ask Like an Auctioneer, like 20 years before it hit me like, oh, this crazy hobby I have is teaching me how to design a strategic ask in a way that I hadn't thought of before. And I realized that the story in my head was I had no business asking him to bring me into his world because I was an economics major. I wasn't a communications major. Everybody else in his company had theater background and came from the dramas and the creative writing spaces. My early career was in fitness. I taught group fitness as a way to get through college and then was an economics major because it was very interesting to me. So I didn't have a resume of being in front of a room like that or being in and around the world of storytelling. And I was like, who do you think you are? And I was totally sure when I made the ask that he was going to say, no. I'm like, not you. Thanks for your interest. But like, really? But he didn't. He said yes. And I was on an airplane to New York the next minute and it changed everything for me. I remember that feeling I had in my guts when I made that ask. I'm sure people who are listening have those moments too. The first raise they asked for, the first fundraise they went out for their startup, or that mentor they were asking for help from, or who knows what it is. But I had that feeling in my gut. Yeah.
That's awesome. And most people fear asking for what they truly want. I think that's common, whether it's a raise, a promotion, or a new opportunity. What do you think holds them back?
We don't want to be rejected. It doesn't feel good. In my book, I talk about making the big ask, but also knowing the difference between value and worth. I make a distinction in that. So for folks listening, I've been a leadership communications coach for 2 decades. I took a sabbatical. I just put myself on a break because sometimes we all need a break. And I did 2 things. I did The Artist's Way from cover to cover.
So good.
So good.
Like I tell people, it's one of the top 5 things I've done for myself in my life.
Me too. So for folks listening, go get it. It's aimed toward art and creativity, but it is relevant in your life to just kind of reconnect with your creative self. And that was one thing I did. And the other thing I did was I went to auctioneering school totally for fun, and then came home and started doing fundraising auctioneering as an impact hobby for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits benefiting women and girls. But 20 auctions into it, I started to realize that my clients, I'm going to call them my clients, even though I'm mostly volunteering for this, my clients would say, this piece of art is worth 20 grand. Okay. But then we'd live auction it and it would go for 4,000. I sold a glamping trip at auction. It was one night glamping trip for the buyer and 11 of their friends. And I sold it that night. It was supposed to be worth 15 grand. We thought we sold it for $55,000 twice.
What?
Yeah. It blew right past what we thought it was worth. I started to clue into like, oh, what we think something is worth has nothing to do with how somebody else values that item. So I say this because one of the things that holds us back is this idea that, yes, I want, for example, you to get paid what you're worth. But if we tie our worth to the requests that we make, it's too easy to raise the stakes so high that we make the answer we get a defining moment in our own self-evaluation of our worth or worthiness.
Yep.
So I would offer your listeners this notion that I learned from auctioneering, which is that price, or what somebody will do or say yes to or pay, is a way to see what they value and how they value it, not a way to define your own worth or worthiness. And when we can do that, the bigger asks we make where we normally would hold back, they can loosen their grip a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And we can just realize like, oh, this is just really good information about what somebody else across the table, across the conference room, in the, whatever conversation we're in, what they value and how they value it. Now, it doesn't get us out of strong storytelling. That's for sure. We have to give our ask the best chance possible. But yeah, when we can find mental models to take the answers we get a little less personally, it can help us take action even in the face of fear.
Yeah. And just understanding they're rejecting the idea, not you. Like, I think people tie it so close to themselves. I know when I first got into business, I took a job in financial services. So it meant I was cold calling. Fun. And when you're cold calling, at first you don't know how to separate yourself from the thing. So I would go home every night sobbing because I'm like, I can't believe they said no to me. I've never heard no so many times in my life. And like all the story. And then finally I realized, yes, they're saying no. It's okay. It's not you. It's the thing. They don't want somebody that called them on the phone to manage their investments. And so when you could take yourself away from it, it just became a numbers game, and you could play the game, and your self-worth wasn't tied to their answer. So you've helped women and professionals break past barriers by improving their ability to communicate powerfully. What's one technique you use to help people instantly sound more confident?
Name and claim your purpose. And that is not about like your life's purpose. It's more about the role that you play in the world. If you are someone who's an earthquake, name and claim that. If you are someone who is an advocate, name and claim that identity. When we get really clear about what our role is in the world, if I am a peacemaker and I resist that about myself, but I realize if I can name and claim that, then you can go, all right, as the peacemaker, how do I show up as my most powerful self? So this is a very clear an important tool that we can use that creates a lens that we can use to help us make more courageous choices about the stories that we select when we're communicating in front of a room, big or small, when we make choices about how we are opening statements, when we shape powerful questions back to our audiences that matter to what we're trying to do. So naming and claiming our purpose is one very valuable tool.
Mm-hmm. Like you named a couple. Can you give me a few more claims that people will have? Because that was helpful to hear.
I have a very specific framework I take people through to develop this. And it is a lot more, what you might hear in these is that they're a lot more about the being than the doing, who I be, in that job. So, I have to like dig deep for just a sec. This is in your sort of space. He's a startup founder in the fintech space, and he is a first ascender here to carve a path for everyone. That's an example. I have another one who said he is a champion for the right good idea. He's a champion for the right good idea. And we can use that when we looked at his key leadership communications moments and go, is this a moment where you're championing? Is it not resonant? Is this not resonant and you're stuck on what content to put together for yourself because you don't actually think it's a right or good idea? What do we need to do about that?
Right.
Is this a moment where you're undermining your own championing because you're afraid of fill in the blank? Those are two, what I call a purpose platform statement. I'll give you another one. I see beyond so we can amplify potential. That was one that came from a tech leader here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And the see beyond, it is about who he can't not see beyond what everyone else is talking about.
Yeah. That's like his superpower.
100%. And it doesn't matter what job he's been in. That's what's happened. I can share mine. I'm an earthquake.
Ooh.
I'm an earthquake, yes, to help people see themselves, to shift perspectives so people can see themselves more powerfully.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're fun.
Mine has to be something earthquakey because when people call me, they call me because they want to make a huge shift. Right? No one calls me and they don't want to like, I'm probably the bomb. No one calls me because they don't want to blow something up and like start something entirely new or pivot. It's pretty fascinating. And I'm always like, that if you show up at my house, that means something big's going on.
So good. Well, I can give you a few peeks into like how you can identify that. Maybe you can play with and folks listening can too.
Sure.
Okay. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify what are like 1 to 3 peak experiences that you've had in your life, in your career, professional, or athletic life. I like including all 3 of those because they're all sort of achievement focused, at least the folks that I work with. So you're going to find those peak moments, and they don't have to be peak public moments. They can be quite private. I've had clients say like, one of the most important peak moments, this was a founder in the blockchain space. He said, one peak moment was I was having lunch with the son of the guy that I was working for when I came here from abroad to work in the tech space. And I realized something. Like it was not, nobody saw it. There was no standing ovation, but something happened for him. It was like, there it was. For me, if you ever are in my intensives, I run a program where people do this. They'll hear this story that for me, it was the first time I had flown abroad for my work with the guy I was mentioning to you earlier. and I checked into the JW Marriott in Hong Kong, and I pulled the curtains back and I looked out at the skyline and I was like, I did it, you know? So you think about those peak experiences that you had, public or not, because all of this purpose stuff isn't about what you want to be. It's about who you actually are. So we look backward and we harvest it from your actual experience. So what are a couple of peak experiences? Can you think of one or two right now?
I mean, I was in a car accident that should have killed me and didn't.
It was peak, even though it was difficult.
It was, because it was like a line in the sand for me.
Interesting. This is not uncommon. Folks will sometimes say things that are they're about like a height achievement, the adrenaline of the like positive. And some people will say like the day I got fired was peak for me.
Yeah.
Or the day I quit something. So your accident is one. Great. Do you have one more?
I mean, I remember standing on the top of Everest.
Okay, that might have something to do with it. Yeah.
That was pretty awesome, if I had to be honest.
Do you have one? Do you have any that are that feel positive or maybe more quiet? I mean, I get it that being at the top of Everest, it's just you, right? So
you're the first person that finds out you're pregnant. Right. And I struggled with fertility. And so when I was pregnant, it was just this like, I instantly felt like this amazing goddess, beautiful human.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So these are the kinds of experiences we point to. And then we want to tell the story about it. And then we're going to ask ourselves the question, okay, what made it peak for you? And then explore a little bit around what made it peak. And that starts to like show us a little bit about what's important to us, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we're going to go a little further and go, okay, so were there any instigating moments that led to that peak experience? And for me, my silly story is like, it was an argument I had with my grandfather actually the year before, where he had signaled to me that he would prefer I just got a job at the bank down the road. Well, he was scared. He was a scared guy.
It was his way of loving you, right? Like 100%. My mom was like, I don't want you climbing Everest. It was because she just loved me, wanted me safe. It wasn't anything against me.
Totally. And then we're going to look at like, what were the instigating moments? People say things to me like, oh, I saw that nobody else was going to speak up, so I went ahead and did it. Or they say like, I saw some sort of injustice, or I had my conversation with my grandfather that made me go, oh, I have to actually stand up for this for myself. I have to decide,
Yeah.
And then we want to ask, okay, what did you want in all of that? What were you looking for as you think about standing at the top of Everest, when you think about that moment waking up after your accident, when you think about that moment and you see that there's 2 blue lines on this, on the stick you peed on, what did you want? I can look at mine and say like, I wanted freedom. I wanted adventure. I wanted deeply connected experiences. I wanted to get outside of how I saw the world in my small town in Northern California. And then we can start looking for themes and go like, oh, from there, who did you have to be in order to achieve that thing?
Right.
And that's where you're like, I had to be the bomb. Or, I had to be willing to blow things up. I had to be the bomb.
Well, I just had to be, I had to be willing to challenge beliefs.
Beautiful. So that gives us a peek into your, what I think of as your purpose platform statement that you can carry with you. I am a challenger voice, or I am unbound by existing beliefs in order to achieve greatness. I'm making these up for you.
Yeah, I know. No, they're fascinating. Keep going.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Tell me more.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
As folks are listening, you're listening for exactly what you just did, Jen. You're like, keep going. That's kind of fun. That's exciting, because we want it to be resonant and true.
Mm-hmm.
So you can look at it and go, yeah, I can look at it and go, I'm that earthquake. It's resonant for me and feels like true. It is both real and aspirational. Are there moments when I'm just the perfect level of an earthquake that shakes things up but doesn't hurt anything and we're all different? It's absolutely. Are there moments where I'm a bull in a china shop? Completely. So it's real, but it's also aspirational for us. And it is derived from your actual experience.
And does it change throughout your life, or are you kind of one thing?
What's important is that the purpose platform statement you have is useful to you. And when it's no longer useful, you might look and go, okay, if I were looking back at my life now, I've accumulated new experiences, what would I call peak now? Oh, actually, it's not the moment I stood at top of Everest. It was the moment that I went on retreat with my adult daughter and we sat in a hammock together. I don't know.
I survived a silence retreat and didn't, all those kinds of things, right?
Yeah. And then you can do the exercise again and maybe come up with something else. Because the question is it useful to building more courageous and confident voice and help you make decisions about how you want to show up in a room?
Because we want it to be useful for you to be able to show up in a room confident and courageous and use it as like you used it. You used it to pull out of your shrinking self and said, no, I'm an earthquake. Let's bring us back. And you came back and showed up. So it's one of these grounding statements that brings you back home to yourself.
Beautiful way to say it. Yes.
Oh, this conversation's fun. I like this. Okay. What's the most inspiring transformation you've witnessed in someone after they've embraced their ability to ask for more?
It's so tough because I get so many of these wonderful little notes after I wrote this book. I had a client last year who negotiated a secondary deal with his initial funders and created his first liquidity event for him and his. It's so hard because every context is really different.
Right.
I think what's shared though across all of those, so I'm going to I'm going to resist answering your question of like, what's the biggest or the most transformational? I think the thing that is so compelling to me all the time isn't that people secure the thing they're looking for, that they got a yes to the biggest version of the ask. It's the fact that they could do it in a way where they're actually speaking from who they truly are.
Like leading with that authentic self and being like, here's really what I need, and just owning that. And no matter what the outcome is watching someone own that space of themselves. So if someone is rejected in their ask, like what's some strategies to recover or mindset shift that you need to have to keep moving forward?
Self-care is a thing here. A friend of mine, he's a musician. You're like, here's my world is speaking in front of audiences. And you kind of like, you're sort of exposed in that moment. Like it's a lot of effort, a lot of adrenaline. You're really putting yourself out there. Even when I go do an auction, he and I talk a lot about what we think of as like post-event glow and then post-event drop.
Yes. It happens. The pumpkin starts to shrivel and you got to go into your room and recover.
100%. And it's not that different when we go make a big high stakes ask and it doesn't play out the way we wanted it to had for ourselves. I think recognizing that drop on the other side of it, that's totally real. And you are not a failure if you experience that. That's human. That's real. So I think a couple things. You've got to have your bench of people who understand what you're doing and understand how risky it feels for you. Not everyone can tolerate the risks that you're taking. I mean, of course, your mom's like, don't go to Everest, right? Because like that, yeah, the risk for her is different than the risk for you. So who are those 3 or 4 people in your world that understand this part of the process, that know what you're trying to do, the goals that you have, that those asks are meant to serve, and kind of know that you have those on deck so that when they happen, you can call them and go, Lisa, it happened today. Like, do you want to go for a walk? So that you got to have those people. I think you also have to practice forgiving yourself for not having it go the way you pictured all the time. And then third is that to remember that this is all an exploration and that the market, I'm going to say it like this, that the market for your ask is bigger than the room you are in. You might be asking Marmot for a sponsorship and they're like, no, not now, but they're not the only ones. As we ask for things in our life and world, we bump up against something new, and your market is just bigger than that one conversation. There will be other asks. There will be other entities. There will be other people.
I love this. Kind of reminds me, my daughters played in a volleyball game this past weekend. And if they won a point, they would do this cheer.
Yeah.
And if they lost a point, they would do the same cheer. And it was every single time. And beautiful. At first I was like, what? And then I sat and I watched it. I'm like, this is amazing, because the energy you need to come to the next point with doesn't matter what happened on the last one. So it's like they clapped off the last point and then they clapped in to cheer the next one.
Yep.
And so no matter what the previous point was, they had the same response to get them ready for the next point to come. And I think in life, as we get older, we forget that, right? And so then when things get hard, we get into this talk or this mindset or this energy level that makes it even harder to come back for the next thing.
Totally. And, adulthood, and we know this now, there's a loneliness epidemic. Adulthood is lonely. And what your daughter has in her volleyball game is, I don't know how many girls are on the court at the same time, 7, the 6 other players around them as her bench of people to be like, whatever, you missed that shot. The serve didn't work the way you wanted to, like clear the decks. We see you.
Yeah.
Do over, next play. And that's the part that's not hard, but like we have to cultivate those crews for ourselves because we don't have necessarily a volleyball team that's following us around. We have to kind of make our own.
I mean, we talk about it at home all the time. Big mountains take big teams. So if you have a big mountain or a big ask or a big whatever that you're building, creating, the more people you're going to need to get it to the finish line. So ask yourself, do I have enough people on this team to bring this idea home?
Yeah.
If there's one shift people could make today to start changing their relationship with asking, what would it be?
That feeling that you get when you make a big ask and you feel like you're laying it all on the line, although it can be characterized as like sort of a negative feeling, like you're trespassing, who do you think you are? And like, this will never work, or all of that negative talk we do for ourselves. There's also a flip side, which is to say that same feeling you can read as a feeling that you're actually standing up for your dreams for yourself, that you're doing something that is important, and that you're actually challenging what you think is possible.
Yeah. So that reframe of, hey, same feeling, but the narrative I'm assigning here is either amplifying that feeling or it's being like normalizing it and saying, hey, this just means I'm stretching or growing or expanding. And that's going to feel uncomfortable at first until we learn how to hold that bigger space. And then we're going to the human experience is to keep doing it over and over. Because we don't stay still. We either shrink or we grow.
And it doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It just means you're doing something important.
Yes, I like that. What's one ask you're making right now for yourself?
This is one of the challenges that folks are like, well, I want to use asking as a success strategy, but I don't know what to ask for right now. And I'm actually in that right now. I'm in an interesting transition in my career. I'm moving from going out to clients, going out on adventures, going to them, to pivoting the way I show up in the world of bringing people to me. I'm hosting retreats. I'm running small supper club dinners. I'm inviting people into my world, and that's a little bit of a shift. So I am actively making asks for people to come to me. And there's a vulnerability in that, but also a lot of joy when somebody says, I want to do that with you.
Yeah. And what made that shift come about for you?
I'm 50.
Okay. I'm 50.
I'm in a season now where small and deep is really important to me. Like, that's just important. So I've been out in the world doing this work in the Olympic movement and with lots of different organizations. I've been on plenty of airplanes, and there's something about small and deep that I'm very interested in. Smaller experiences with a longer time period and going deeper with people. And I'm just in that season. I don't know, but I'm listening for it. Like, it's that idea of like, we have a picture of what we want for ourselves, and we also have to listen to what's really alive. And that's very alive for me right now.
Oh, I like that. And being able to marry the two and allow yourself the transition period, because I don't feel like you're rushing right now. And sometimes people during the transition period will try to rush it because it can be uncomfortable just because things aren't settled. How are you holding that space of allowing that transition to show up the way it is?
That's a really interesting observation, because inside of my body, I feel extremely rushed.
Really?
Yes. But the way I'm actually trying to walk in the world is with patience.
Yeah.
Those two experiences are happening at the same time. I'm glad that you are, if this is what you're saying to me.
Yeah, no, my experience is you're very intentional in accepting of the process that it's taking. And me, I have a hard time with patience.
I mean, I think it's the idea too that I have to let go of something to make room for something else. And that takes a little bit of rearranging the living room. That's a practice for me. Also, I'm very action oriented. It's not to say that I'm not giving myself things to do, obviously. I am still running my retreats. I'm still doing private coaching. I'm, starting to host these dinners, which I'm very excited about. But I am letting the feeling that I have on the inside of being impatient. I want it here now. I'm kind of caring for that voice, being tender toward it a little bit.
Yeah.
And then just doing something every day to bring my new picture to life.
Yeah, I like that. Just little movements, a commitment every single day of doing one thing that brings the new thing into fruition and not needing to like smother it or blast it or, like make it overwhelming, allowing that to be like one thing and it will eventually fold over and flip the tide and things will go in my direction.
Well, how do you, and maybe we're going on a long time about this, but I'm curious, how do you, when you're climbing, exercise patience with the climb? Because you have to, I would imagine, I'm not a mountaineer. My dad was a mountaineer. His best friend went up a mountain and never came back down. I would imagine you can't rush it. That's dangerous when you rush, and you have to pace to what's going on, whether climate or conditions or, how do you practice patience in those moments?
I am a rabbit. Like there is a speed that I'm comfortable going. And when I'm not going that speed, it is a constant communication to tell myself that we're good. This is the way it's supposed to be. Because if I start listening to myself, the listening will destroy me, right? It will start telling me things that are going to send me down a negative spiral. So I actually have to talk internally myself through the system and be like, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. This makes sense, blah, 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 blah. Because I do think we all have like gears that we're used to. And when you're running in the gear you're comfortable with, you're like life's flowing. And then when you get shifted into a gear that isn't quite your norm, it, for me, is a conversation that's continuous so that I stay on top of the narrative.
It goes exactly to what we just talked about, how you're experiencing me and how I'm experiencing me.
Yeah. I love it. Both are true and both exist. How about that for life?
I tell my clients all the time when they're like, I'm helping a woman put together a script right now for a big campaign she's on, and she's like, it's so easy to be like, it feels awkward. And I'm like, doesn't sound awkward. Sounds smooth and beautiful. Like we're always fighting exactly with like operating in multiple gears at a different time. And it just goes to show that your experience of you is not our experience of you.
Yeah.
In your leadership communications voice, like cultivating patience with the audience is a useful tool. You're going to feel impatient on the inside. You're going to come out as patient on the outside. Those two things can coexist.
Yeah. Anybody who's ever given a speech or have a conversation and then hold silence for 3 seconds so that everything can land. And you as the audience, you're like, oh, okay, you're piecing it together and you're like letting the puzzle land so you can hear the next piece. As the speaker, you're like, oh my gosh, this is the longest duration amount of time ever, right?
Yeah. So it's all a dance and it never ends. It just changes.
Yeah, totally. All right. So you built a career helping others amplify their voice. What legacy do you hope to leave through your work?
It's interesting. It goes back to my purpose platform statement, which, I know I said is not publishable. It's for you to use, but it's really the second half of it, which is that people that I work with, have the great opportunity to work with, walk away having worked with me, seeing themselves more powerfully. And, I'm not going to change the world. I'm going to change a few worlds as I go through the impact of my career. So that's the number one.
I love it. So good. Okay. So how do people find you, become a part of your world, hire you, all the different things? Share those details for us.
Great. So the best thing, and this is part of my pivot, or not pivot, but the evolution of my career, is that if they go to diabondi.com/intensive, you're going to see the 2.25 day retreat style intensive that I run for founders and leaders and thinkers to help develop what I call the platform map, which is their 4-part framework for developing a strong strategic voice that they can use to lead whatever it is they're leading, their business, their initiative, their thoughts, their thought leadership. So that's a great place to start. And I do take private coaching clients, but I only take 3 at a time. So folks can, if they go to diabondi.com, they can find and inquire about that if that's interesting to them. And then if you want to think about asking for more and getting it, we created a special landing page for your listeners. If you go to diabondi.com/seek summit, you're going to find a little download there, which is a 6-step framework for you to decide to develop a strategic ask in your world. So those are 3 things folks can do.
Yay. Thank you so very, very much. This has been a great episode. I've enjoyed it and I know our audience has, so I appreciate you.
So much fun.
Thank you.